Hey everyone, welcome to Supercharged Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm here with a good friend of mine, executive wellness coach Anthony DiClemente, the author of the Biohackers Guide to Upgraded Energy and Focus, and his website is biohackingsecrets.com. And you know, this Anthony is one of the guys when I want to geek out and up-level my knowledge on high performance, how to improve my health, how to live longer, how to feel better, improve my focus, improve my energy, and really geek out in the details and find out what's really going on. Anthony's my guy. So Anthony, thank you for being on the podcast, first of all.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
What people don't know is that with the first 20 minutes we've been on this phone call, we've actually just been geeking out about EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. You've just moved to a new home, which is a whole nother story of like why you've moved to this new home. So what I thought we'd do on this show is we'll just talk how we usually talk, because we're going to get into a lot. So first off, Anthony, would you share with us your story and how you got to become a biohacker and, you know, executive wellness coach?
Yeah. So, I was in the health space, focused mostly on nutrition and exercise. And, around 2011, just my health started going down the gutter. I was like exhausted. My body started hurting. I felt like I was like an 80-year-old man trapped in a 28-year-old's body. And, I had gotten about as strict as I could get with my diet, and like, I had ramped up my exercise. I was doing CrossFit. I was doing Insanity. I was doing like the most extreme workouts I could possibly do, just applying that mentality that we have here in the States of like more is better. And I was like, there's no way I could possibly do more than I'm doing right now. I have to be missing something. There has to be more to this puzzle. And that was when I started, I saw over a dozen doctors over 12 months trying to figure it out. And everyone was like, you're fine. You're in great shape. But like, you could like see my abs, but my dick wasn't working. So like, I wasn't in great shape. I looked like I was fit, but I wasn't healthy, if that makes sense. And, so after 12 doctors just kind of kept telling me the same thing, there's nothing wrong with you, I started diving into it myself and like, and realizing that, there's a whole lot happening out there in helping people with like chronic and degenerative diseases and things that athletes are using to take their performance to the next level. And like both of those extremes can help everybody in between the two. Like you don't have to be a professional athlete. You don't have to be sick dealing with cancer or Parkinson's or neurodegenerative disease of other sorts or obesity to use the strategies. Like the extremes inform the mean essentially. And, I started applying some of these different things, and really what I realized is that, and what Biohacking Secrets is all about, it's about our energy production. Everything is energy production. Whether we're talking about fat loss, whether we're talking about aging, whether we're talking about reversing disease, it's all about how well your body makes energy. So I started focusing on the little energy powerhouses of our cells called mitochondria, and like when I did that, everything started making sense and working, and it took some of my focus off of the paleo versus ketogenic versus Whole30 versus this or that, or CrossFit versus yoga versus, it's about the mitochondria.
So what are some of the things that you do to increase your energy then, focusing on the cell's mitochondria?
Yeah, so there's kind of like two parts to it. There's all the stuff that like destroys our mitochondria, and it's reducing your exposure to those things. And these are essentially like toxins, environmental toxins, but the environment I'm talking about, if we're going to get a little nerdier, is like the environment surrounding your mitochondria. And then you have all of the things that supercharge your mitochondria, right? So like some examples in each category. We were just talking about EMFs. EMFs are one of the most overlooked sources of mitochondrial toxicity. They essentially like make your mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of your cells, worse at making energy. They expand. There's more distance in between all of the respiratory proteins, and like you make less energy. So we make energy from food, oxygen, and sunlight. And we make energy in the form of ATP. And as your mitochondria get worse, you make less ATP. And at first, it's just like, I'm a little bit tired. And then your immune system starts getting worse. And then you start putting on weight. It's not always in that same order, but those things are what tend to occur if you don't like step in and change the course you're on. Things that supercharge your mitochondria, natural sunlight. So a lot of our focus recently and things that I'm a big advocate of are getting natural sunlight to your eyes and skin and your head without burning, and doing it in a way that's safe, and then minimizing those unnatural EMFs, and just being conscientious and aware of how often we're on these electronic devices.
Yeah, so you've actually moved home twice to reduce your EMF exposure. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and like why you left Chicago to Florida, and then why you left the apartment you was in Florida to a home and get an expert in EMF in? Like, what is this all about? Please share.
Yeah, so I think like God, the universe, whatever source energy, whatever it is that you believe in, I think there was some divine intervention here, and like it was kind of like a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you need to learn more about this stuff. And I think that necessity can be our greatest teacher. So when we were in Chicago around December of 2016, my girlfriend moved in with me. She's from Venezuela. She'd always had fantastic health, never any issues with anything really. And then in January, she had her first panic attack. She was dealing with, like, all of a sudden she was more and more tired, and it got worse and worse and worse until, like, we did some videos on it. We had her taking different supplements for it, and like they helped a little, but we weren't really getting to the problem. And it escalated to the point where she was waking up with headaches and chest pain, like every morning. And for me, I'm twice her size. So I was waking up and I was like a little bit tired, and I had to use every bit of motivation to like drag myself out of bed. But I knew if I could get my workout in, I was like good to go. It was like, it was like that kind of like jump started my system. But what we realized with her was when we were checking out where we wanted to move, we were deciding between California and Florida. We go to California, and like one of the things that I have inside our membership site is like I call it like the Biohackers 7-day circadian reset. And this was kind of like developed from what we were doing in California. But day one of us doing this reset, she wakes up that morning and no headache, no chest pain. And I'm like scratching my head. Day two, same thing. Day three, same thing. So we've gone from months of headache and chest pain. Now, mind you, I had completely swept my place for EMFs. We were unplugging our Wi-Fi at night. Cell phones were airplane mode. We were killing the breakers in our room, like all of that stuff. What I didn't realize was that our neighbor had a high-powered Wi-Fi router on the shared wall, which was our bedroom. So our heads were right on this shared wall, and our neighbor was probably their living room. I never went next door and said, hey, can you turn off your router? But it was the same frequency as if my girlfriend was on her cell phone for 8 hours every night while she slept. So of course she's waking up with a headache and chest pain. And so we go to California, it goes away. We go back to Chicago, it comes back. We go camping in Florida, it goes away. We go back to Chicago, it comes back. And it was like, we don't even want to be in this environment because there are things that we can't control that are having a very serious impact on how we feel.
Are you sure she just didn't want to? She just wanted to move to California. She didn't like Chicago anymore.
Really planned.
That's what I would have thought.
She really stuck to her guns in an impressive fashion. Yeah. So we where's I going with that? Made me laugh. So basically, we were joking that we were like homeless for like 3 months because we didn't want to go home. So we were like, you want to go to the Telluride Yoga Festival? Okay, cool. And like, we just like went around and camped, and like we even stayed at my parents' place for a little bit, and we were paying like a lot of rent. You were at our place in Chicago. Yeah. Like, it wasn't cheap, but we were never there. We paid rent for like last 3 months and like barely set foot in the place. And then, so we go to Florida to look at where we decided on Florida. And we found this place that we really liked. And of course, like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So all I'm looking for is like, all right, so our neighbor had a high-powered Wi-Fi router on a shared wall. I just want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I'm walking around with my EMF meter.
Actually, quick question. So you had an EMF meter in your place in Chicago, and that's how you realized that the Wi-Fi was right next to it.
Yeah. So I have I have a couple, but one of them, like one of the easiest, that's most accessible, and like a lot of coaching clients end up getting them, is this Cornet EMF meter. It doesn't have it's just a Cornet Microsystems electro smog meter, and I think they make ones that are like that measure 2 types of EMFs, and then this one measures 3. which is, like the wireless, your magnetic, and your electric. So those are some of the main ones that you want to look for. So just for like the folks listening, whenever you're measuring your home and your work environment, these are like the most important because we spend the most time there, right? You think about where you sleep, where you hang out at home, and then where you work. Those are like the three main environments of human beings. You want to be looking at the magnetic frequencies, the electric frequencies, and the wireless frequencies, or RF, radio frequencies. And then the fourth thing that one of my good friends, well, now he's a friend, and a consultant in this area pointed out is also the grounding of your home. How well is your home grounded? Because there's like, he started showing me this stuff, but like if your home is not properly grounded, when you plug in a lamp, say, and that lamp is plugged into the wall, and you go and you turn on the lamp, well, that current needs to ground itself, and it will run through your body, down to your feet, into the grounding system of your home to ground itself. And if your home is not properly grounded, then your body ends up carrying a much higher voltage than it should. And this also has a huge impact on our energy production, how fast we age, our ability to lose weight or, store fat on the other end of that spectrum. And so we started paying a lot of attention to those things, but I was only looking at wireless. So I'm walking around with this Coronet meter if you can imagine, my girlfriend and I with real estate agents checking out places in Florida, looking like two nutbags, walking around with this meter. They're like, are you guys like looking for ghosts? But I wanted to make sure the same thing didn't happen, right? Like they maybe hadn't experienced it, but we had. I didn't want to expose her to that same type of morning sickness without the baby. So we found an awesome place that checked out. And I was like, as we were leaving, I remember looking up and being like, there's a freaking cell tower on this building right next door. And I'm like, I know that can't be good, but nothing went off on the meter, we'll be fine. And like, we love the building. So we grabbed all our stuff, we moved in, and the first day, headaches, chest pain. Same thing. Second day, headaches, chest pain. And I'm like, dang it. So then I start doing some more measurements, and I start realizing that like there's a transformer outside of our unit, and all of the electricity for the entire building is running underneath our floor. Well, like, dumb me, I thought being on the ground floor was a good thing because we were closer to the Earth's electromagnetic field. Well, no, not if the electricity for the entire place is running underneath your unit, And on top of that, they told us as we were like 45 minutes away that the trash compactor was also next to our unit, which requires a tremendous amount of electricity, and that's kicking off crazy EMFs. So whether it was the cell tower, the power running underneath our unit, or the trash compactor, my girlfriend's again waking up with us, and I said, you know what, enough. We're moving to a single family home. I'm bringing in an EMF consultant, and we're going to get this solved once and for all. And now we're here.
Wow. So look, I'm sure there's going to be people watching this, listening to this, thinking, you can't really prove it was EMF that was making her feel bad. And I'm sure there's people thinking that, you've just gone through a lot of trouble for something that, not many people are talking about the risks of EMF, and, maybe it's in your head. I'm just thinking like, this is what some people could be thinking. So what's some of the research on, the effects of electromagnetic frequency?
Yeah, so I actually just did a webinar today to address a lot of this, because the problem with the way that these EMFs have been addressed to the public up to this point is that it's like the people doing it come across like whack jobs, and it's like scare tactics, and it doesn't reflect like, I have an iPhone right here. You know what I mean? I'm talking to you on a laptop computer. I'm not like moving to the mountains. You and I both have beards, but we didn't grow them because we're like dismissing our consumerist, capitalist culture and whatever. You can live a normal life and still be aware of the long-term risks that these things pose to our health. Mm-hmm. And there's so much that's changed in the last 15, 20 years. So I talked about this a little bit in the webinar. I'm not trying to convince anyone that EMFs are bad. I think that like personally, I'm in pursuit of like the highest and best quality of life that I could live. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend is as well. I know you are as well. Mm-hmm. And I use it kind of like I mean, I take clients now that join our membership site or even like our coaching program, and I talk to them and I'm like, look, the same way that you've done an elimination diet and put all of this focus and energy into your food, I promise if you put 1/10 of that into your environment and like these electromagnetic frequencies that are damaging your body and cleaning that up, you'll notice a lot more than you have from bouncing from diet to diet to diet or like, you know, CrossFit to yoga to whatever. You know, you can think about a few things like this that have changed. And I don't know if, well, the webinar is probably the best because it's a little bit longer. It goes into a little bit more in depth, but the cell phone was labeled as possibly carcinogenic in 2011 by the World Health Organization. It was put into the same category as chloroform and lead. Like chloroform is the stuff that you put over people's mouths and knock them out in the movies, right? It's like, I don't know about you, but I remember like joking around as a kid about like lead poisoning and like lead in pencils, and everyone was like, then we found out it was graphite. But like we're aware that this stuff's dangerous. And then if you talk about the risks of like having a cell phone next to your head for 5 hours a day, people are like, oh, you know, you're full of it. These have a very real effect on the energy powerhouses of our cells. There's studies showing that as little as 0.5 milliwatts per meter squared. Don't worry about the nerdery. Like ignore milliwatts per meter squared. We'll just say 0.5. As little as 0.5 has been shown to cause headaches and cognitive problems. When you start getting up to 0.6, then there's like cardiac issues, arrhythmias, higher and higher interference with sperm motility, and 50% reductions in sperm counts, so on and so forth. So I pulled up my phone and I was like, let's just do something during the webinar. I was like, let's just do something that we all do like at least once a day. Let's watch a video on Facebook, right? So I pulled up a video on Facebook and I was like, now remember, 0.5, there's studies showing biological damage. And I'm going to show you on the Cornet meter, you know, green is good, yellow is warning, red is bad. Like you'll see the way I have my laptop rigged right now, we're in the green. We're good. Like that's I can't see myself on the screen, but hopefully you guys could see that it's green. I pulled it up and my phone was spiking over 100 multiple times.
Wait a minute. So 0.5 that causes issues.
Headaches.
0.5 causes headaches.
Yes.
Issues.
0.5. My phone was spiking over 100 multiple times during the demonstration. And people are going, I have brain fog. I don't know what it is. Yeah, maybe you should stop freaking out over phytates and lectins and get that phone away from your head for a little bit.
Wow. Yeah, you know, something I want to ask you. So when I'm on the phone, I usually do one of two things. I've either got one of these in, you know, some earphones, or I'm on speakerphone.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm doing earphones like this, is this protecting me at all?
So the best kind is air tube headphones, and air tube headphones don't use wiring. The wiring stops like down here. I don't know if you could see, and then this is actually just air. So it's getting the sound to my head just using air, and so there's no frequencies of any type going into your head.
Dude, are these on your website? Because I know you've got a store on your website.
They're not yet.
So many things. The thing is with you, Anthony, like you're so on top of things. When everything new comes out, you've got it. So it must be a nightmare trying to keep your store updated.
Yeah, I don't even try. I just like that's Nick's responsibility. I'm like, Nick, get this in the store. He's like, dude. So I'm sure he's the one that deals with that headache.
Okay.
But no, they're not. But you know who has a really good pair? Dr. Mercola. Mercola has a pair in his store that I've heard are amazing. I'm going to be picking those up. The ones I have, they're okay. I got them on lessemf.com, but I've heard the Mercola ones are amazing for anybody that's listening and wants to get a pair. Okay. And you know, like when I've found stuff that is quality that I'll endorse, then I'll put it on the store. But I'm not like, I don't want to rush just to put something in the store if it's garbage, you know.
That's fine.
And so when I'm on the phone, like most of the time my phone's in airplane mode, right? Like you and I were discussing this back in November and just how important of a practice that is. And like, but when I use my phone, I've got something called a block sock. So it's BLOCSOCK, and it's basically got some silver in there, and it's able to block some of those frequencies that we know can be harmful to our brain function and our energy production and our overall health. Thanks, baby. My girlfriend brought it over so we can see. This is what it looks like.
How do I spell that?
Blocksock. So like
Okay.
their website is cellphoneradiation.com. You can also get these on lessemf.com.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys want to get real weird. I don't know how weird we want to get, Mark, but if you
We want to get weird, bro. Let's just do it.
want to get real weird? All right. So I'm seeing a lot of patterns in like going through people's blood work and looking at their biohacked labs. And one of them is that like even if people are really on top of their sleep timing, they're going to bed by 10, they're waking up at 6, and paying attention to everything that we think influences sleep hygiene, the quantity and the quality is not always there. And what we're seeing in particular, and like the Aura Ring, you have one as well, has been giving us some of these data points, which is cool. So shout out to the guys over at Aura, and that is in the Biohacker store, is a decrease in deep sleep, insufficient deep sleep. Like, now, why is that scary? I mean, it's scary for a guy like me whose dad has Parkinson's, a neurodegenerative condition, because we know that these neurodegenerative conditions, there's a huge link between inconsistent, poor quality sleep and an accumulation of toxins and beta amyloid plaque in the brain. And if you're not getting enough REM sleep and you're not getting enough deep sleep, I don't know about you, but like I'm thinking, shit, where am I going to be in 30 years, 40 years? I don't want to have, I don't want to be dealing with this stuff. So I've been working on some things and finding some ways to hack deep sleep and get that back up that are pretty cool. And there's a few that I'm working on, but I'm gonna show you one of them just so that you guys could have a laugh. And it's gonna screw up my hair for the rest of the episode. But it's called a brain shield, and essentially like what this stylish piece
Dude,
of
that looks pretty cool. Seriously.
I haven't even seen what it looks like. Like my girlfriend,
cool,
my girlfriend put it on. But the idea is this protects your most valuable organ while you sleep. And my hypothesis is that it could be a lot of different things, right? Often this stuff's multifactorial, but my hypothesis is that either accumulated frequencies, unnatural electromagnetic frequencies during the day, or even ones that we're exposed to at night, ones that may even be smaller than what is registering on devices like the Coronet meter, are interfering with our body's ability to go into deep stages of sleep and clear those toxins. And that's why we're seeing this huge acceleration in Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative conditions. So I want to see if I'm protecting my dome and I'm protecting my eyes with the right stuff. Do we start, along with some of the other things I'm doing during the day, do we start seeing huge increases in deep sleep? And then, we've got a bunch of other people in the coaching program and the biohacking community that are ready to jump on it if we're seeing some positive traction with an N of 1 and roll it out to more people.
Yeah, so just to let everyone know who's watching this or listening to this. So Anthony and I use this thing called an Aura Ring, and this basically, it's like an advanced Fitbit, tracks your sleep, tracks your steps, and it has a really good breakdown of sleep. It breaks into like 4 quadrants, whether you're tell you how much light sleep you've had, REM sleep, deep sleep, and maybe just whether you're awake or not, right? And it'll tell you what percentage each night of sleep you've been in. So what I'm assuming Anthony is going to do is he's going to measure his sleep. How long have you been tracking your sleep for, Anthony?
So, while we were, I jokingly say homeless, I got a little bit away from the sleep tracking, mostly because I realized some other things that we can discuss later if people want to nerd out on sleep. But I was tracking it pretty diligently before we started traveling and camping a ton. And then it just like it's a little bit difficult to keep the ring charged. I don't know if you found that.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just like, I'm not willing to like the extra effort it required to get the thing charged and keep it charged to track every day wasn't worth it when I was like camping and stuff. But yeah, I've been tracking it pretty regularly for over a year now.
All right, so you got decent data over a year of how your sleep usually is and how much REM you get, how much deep sleep. So when you start wearing, what's your cap called?
So this is, I believe it's called, it's like a brain shield or like a brain coat. Brain coats.
Okay.
Yeah. It's basically like radio frequency shielding for the brain.
All right. So you should be able to see from the data you've got whether the brain coat's making any difference or not in your sleep, which will be interesting.
Yeah, and this is something that, like, you know, in the community, a few other people have been like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, my deep sleep sucks." And yeah, we've seen some beneficial improvements come from, like, you know, cold thermogenesis, ice baths, getting in Lake Michigan like you and I did, and like freezing our butts off. And like on days that I was doing that, my sleep was way better, deep sleep through the roof. But like, that's not always replicable depending on where people live, and it can be a pain in the butt if you're in Florida to have a stock tank that's always cold, and like you got to go get ice, and you know what I mean? So I'm trying to find some other things where it's like, if you know that, you know, while you and I are computing and doing work from our home office, you can put some of this stuff on to protect your body. You wear it while you sleep. It doesn't really make that big of a difference, besides the fact that you don't look like you're runway ready while you're catching up on your Z's. And if that helps, then that could be something that a lot of people could adopt. And like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to push the envelope and find things decades before they're mainstream, because we can benefit from this stuff right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was noticing my REM sleep sucked. It was like terrible pretty much every night. An aura ring will show you, like, it'll go red if it's bad. I was red almost every night. And, you know, that was when I was in my old apartment. And I thought it might have been the Wi-Fi, because there was in that old apartment, this is no joke, I could pick up about 60 different Wi-Fi signals in one little room where we was at. Yeah, 60. And you know what? It's actually not that great where I'm at now, because I counted 36 in my office. I don't even know where all these Wi-Fi are coming from. They've got such a long range these days. Counted 36. So I thought it might be the Wi-Fi. So when we moved to this place, a little bit less Wi-Fi, my REM sleep still sucked. So eventually, the thing that I changed, which made the biggest difference, was actually my mattress.
Yeah.
It was actually my mattress. We got a new mattress. We went and got one. This one from a company called Essentia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and got some like organic rubber natural mattress, like this classic one. And since getting the new mattress, most nights now my REM sleep is good. But it was the mattress that made the difference, because I was sleeping in a mattress, and apparently what I was doing is I just kept turning from side to side. I was just never comfortable. I'd get too hot, I'd turn, and every little micro movement was knocking me out of the REM sleep. Now I've got this mattress, it's just so comfortable, I don't really need to move, and my REM sleep's gone up a lot.
That's pretty wild. One of the other things that we found, and like that I was a little bit, you know, I wanted to be cognizant of when we moved into this place, is that like the metal coils in some of these mattresses can act like antenna and like amplify electromagnetic frequencies. Like when we were in Chicago, I had our like this magnetized sleep pad that we use. And I realized that when we were in a bad EMF environment, it actually was making it worse.
Oh.
And we took that off, and we both were sleeping a little better. Like, the problem was still there, but it wasn't amplified. And then we get to a good environment here in Florida. We put the magnetic pad back on, and like then it's a booster, you know. And then it has like an ergogenic effect.
Are you using any grounding mats when you sleep? Like, what do you think of those things?
So I think if you're using like the grounding sheets, and you actually have it where your spike is in the earth, then you're good. I think if you're plugging into the wall, that's up to you if you want to do it. I don't think it's worth it, and I've personally experienced problems with some of those devices plugging into the wall. And I've talked at length with you know, the EMF consultant that we used, and a number of other people, and you know, there's a lot of houses that aren't properly grounded, like we're talking about with the light, and then you're plugging into that ground and laying on it. So yes, some of the time you may be fine, and it may help, but it's definitely unnecessary risk. One of the clients that just started this week, he's had sleep issues since he was like 12. And his wife has been doing a lot to try to help him. And one of those things is she bought him like all of those different earthing products. Mm-hmm. So he's got like, not to mention the fact that the EMFs in your environment increase if you've got a ton of stuff plugged in. So now he's got all this stuff plugged in and he's like laying on it 24/7, you know? So not my cup of tea. If you're plugging it into the actual earth, then I think it's good.
Okay, so what are some of the like latest biohacks that you're up to? So we haven't really had a proper conversation for almost like a year, like November. So I'm just wondering, like, over the past 12 months, what are some of the things you've been up to?
Yeah. So, well, the EMF thing has definitely brought a lot of awareness, and like that was why I did today's webinar, and talked about this guy that lost 72 pounds without dieting or exercising, to bring some more awareness to this topic, because I think that we're so obsessed with food and exercise and things that we can see and things that we can measure. Well, we can measure EMFs. It's just a lot of people don't know how. And these invisible frequencies and energies are having such a big impact. I've been wanting to bring more attention to that because it's something that's personally impacted my girlfriend, and had a big impact on our life. So some of the we're gonna do some episodes on that, but like today we swapped out our smart meter for the old analog. We used the Florida Power and Lighting opt-out program, and we said, hey, we don't want the smart meter that's constantly transmitting back to the power company. We want to go analog, and they did that. It was like, boop, pull it off, boop, put the other one on. Like I mentioned, I don't know if we were live yet, but we switched our Wi-Fi off so that we're basically just plugging directly in. I kind of have made the joke that when you go backwards technologically, you free yourself to evolve biologically. And
wow, that's a great point.
Yeah. So we're doing a lot of that. We're kind of going back to before we started seeing this rapid acceleration in autism and Alzheimer's and heart disease and cancer and thyroid disorders. I'm being very conscientious of my environment. I'm spending a lot more time in the sun and in the ocean. And we may have frozen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think it was going well. It might have frozen because I actually just hit my I turned the Wi-Fi on my laptop just to see how many different signals were coming in here.
I did it on my phone too while you brought it up. I reached over and I was like, I want to see how many it is.
Yeah.
No, because that's a great point. Yeah, Paul Becker talked about that on the Biohacking Secrets show. He's the guy behind the Earth Pulse, and he's gone the full extreme. He moved where he's like, it's not like a shack, but he's like barefoot on the earth, spending a lot of day there, and like a lot of people are. I'm surprised at how many people are aware of this issue. And like you and I were talking about, if you're texting in the same hand for long periods of time, you can sometimes start feeling like the tingling or like those weird sensations or the achiness. People feel this stuff. They're not dumb,
Yeah.
And I think it's just like connecting the dots for people and pointing them in the right direction and what they can do about it without like quitting their job or, moving to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about feeling the cell phones. I remember I got my first cell phone when I was 13 years old. So that's 19 years ago now. And
Yeah.
I used to be on that thing for hours. I'd just be on it for hours at night. And once I've been done with it, I had a headache. I'd have a really bad headache and wouldn't be able to sleep very well. And I'd wake up just feeling terrible. My ear would be hot, my head would feel hot. It'd almost feel like, cooked. My head would feel cooked. And I used to do it quite often. And then eventually I figured out, I don't like having it so close to my head. And then I had I don't know how to explain it other than like a spiritual experience about 6 years ago, 7 years ago in London. Where I don't know if I think I shared this with you before. Have I ever told you this? I had like some crazy like enlightenment experience.
Maybe. Keep going though.
So, dude, about when I was like 26, I was living in London, 25, 26. I went through a period of like self-discovery. So, right, really long story short, I was raised Catholic, I think like yourself, was like raised Catholic, and then when I was like 18, I was like, oh, this is all bullshit, and started, reading science books and biology books and evolutionary psychology. And I was like, oh, all that religion stuff is bullshit. I'm an atheist. So I was like more than happy being an atheist. And then when I was like 25, 26, I was dating a girl who was like super Christian. She was super Christian. And I was like, well, she might be right. I might be right. I'm not ignorant or arrogant enough to say that she's definitely wrong. Like, I could be wrong. And anyway, he sort of opened me up just to exploring more consciousness and reading up on different religions. And I went on vacation with some of my friends, and they was all talking about how you've been conditioned to think. All right, so we get born into this world, and our parents condition us with certain ways of thinking, like mindsets. All right. Yeah. Then, if we live in the Western world, if you're raised in the US, you're raised with different mindsets than if you're raised in Great Britain, like I was. If you're raised in Russia, you'll have different mindsets from Great Britain. If you're raised in Afghanistan, you'll have different mindsets than America, or all over, right? Depending on your religion, your culture, you're just conditioned to believe different things. Yeah. And, I never had a discussion about that before, like what you've been conditioned to believe. Never had a discussion with that. And at the time, it was actually shocking to me to realize that a lot of the things that my life was about at the time, I was very flashy at the time. I was all about like nice watches, nice cars. Like, I didn't have any of those things, but that's what I wanted. That's what it was all about, status symbols. Yeah. And I just sort of had a realization that deep down, none of that stuff really appealed to me. It's just what I've been conditioned to want, right? Yeah. And the worrying thing about that was I realized that my whole life was about getting those things. Like, every day when I woke up, all I did was think about how I could get a fancier watch or a fancier car. Like, my whole life was about it, yet I didn't, when I actually went into myself and thought about it, I actually didn't care about any of those things. Yeah. So it was like a big shock for me, psychologically. I was like, wait a minute, I'm 26 years old, my whole life is about getting these things, and for the first time I've realized I actually don't care about these things. Like, what else is going on in my head that isn't really aligned with what I want? It's just what I've been conditioned to believe. Totally. So I was walking around London for like 2 weeks. I was a health coach at the time, clients and everything. And I kept just thinking to myself, everything that came into my head, I was like, wait a minute, do I really believe this? Or is this like just what I've been told to believe? I've just been conditioned to believe this. And as you can imagine, walking around for 2 weeks, every thought that comes into your head, you're like double thinking, you're second guessing yourself and like judging it and saying, wait a minute, is this me or is this something else? I started to go, it was hard work. I started to get a little bit like, I really don't know what to believe anymore. Yeah. As it happened, synchronistically, I had this health coach. It wasn't a health coach, actually. He was like a business coach for fitness people. So I had this business coach, and he had some homework for me. So I log on my computer one night. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm in my apartment in Balham in London, it's a place near Clapham. And, I had roommates, everyone was in bed, it was dark night, pulled up my laptop. This was before I was going to bed at 10 p.m. and, had all my sleep dialed in. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, opened up my laptop, I was like, let me see what, he was called Steve, I was like, let me see what Steve has sent me for my homework. Opened it up, and he's like, oh, this is branding homework, Mark, okay, we're doing some branding homework. And he said, I need you to answer this question, because this one question is going to help you really figure out what your brand is. So I was like, all right, I'm looking at the email. He says, the one question you need to answer to really be able to align your brand is, what do you believe in? So I'm looking at this question, what do you believe in? And I actually started to just laugh, to just chuckle to myself. Because I'm like, if you'd have asked me this 2 weeks ago, I'd be able to tell you everything I believe in like that, no problem. I said, today, I have no idea what I believe in. So I started to laugh. I was like, what do I believe in? I was like, I don't know. I realized that I didn't know who I even was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was me. I didn't know what was urban conditioning. I just honestly didn't know who I was. So I remember I was like totally atheist at the time. I remember just looking up to the sky thinking, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what this is about. I don't know what life's about. I've got no idea. And I looked up to the sky and I was like, I just want to know the truth. What is all this about? And I'm just going to tell you what happened. I'm not going to put anything on it. I'm not going to say, this is the truth of life. I'm just going to tell you what happened. So I was looking up to the sky and I'm like, I don't know what this is about. Like, just tell me the truth. I don't even know who I was speaking to. I was like, just what's this about? All of a sudden, I just went, it felt as though like a stream of energy just came directly into my head. Yet at the same time, it felt like I just remembered everything. It wasn't like new energy. It was like a remembering. It was like all this information came in and I felt like I remembered it. And there was sort of two things that happened at the same time. Well, three things that happened at the same time. The first thing I felt was a lot of fear. I felt like this stream of knowledge or intelligence would have carried on. But the reason why I went and grabbed my head is because I was scared and I wanted it to stop. Because I was just scared. I was freaking out. Then the other two things that happened, one was knowledge. And the knowledge that came to me was basically there's an illusion of separateness between everything on Earth. And really we're all connected, connected to the plants, trees, each other. Said that, God, what people talk about God is basically like an energy wave. And we all are in it. We're all this oneness, we're all connected, we are like God, all of us, the whole thing is, the whole universe is, if you like, God energy, it's the same thing, like source. And bear in mind, this was all new to me. I wasn't reading any books, I was atheist and happy about that. And then the knowledge that came, and I'm not saying this is true or false, I'm just saying this is what happened, this is what I got. The knowledge that came was saying that, human beings, we have these psychic abilities and we're a lot more than what we think we are. Finally, the second thing that came was a feeling. And that feeling was just of intense love. Just intense love and joy for everything. So I remember looking outside. The first thing I did is I looked outside my apartment window. And I'd been living there a couple of years, so it was nothing new. I just looked outside the apartment window, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's dark. And I saw this tree, same tree I saw every single day. Looked at the tree, and I just started bursting with tears. I just started crying with tears of joy. Because I looked at the tree, and I believe it's the first time I actually saw the tree for what it is. And I didn't notice I didn't see a difference between me and the tree. I felt connected with everything. And I just started crying how beautiful the world is, how beautiful everything is. And I walked around London for about 4 days like that. It was like my ego, Mark, just completely disappeared. And I was walking around like some enlightened being for 4 days. And then I woke up on the fourth day and ego kicked back in, Mark came back, and fear took over. I was just frightened. I was like, what the fuck just happened? Am I losing my mind? What's going on? Am I crazy? Yet at the same time, it felt like it was the truth, It felt as though, for the first time in my life, I actually saw the truth of what's actually going on, and it came back on the fourth day. Anyway, the reason why I bring it up is because those 4 days while I was on some other frequency or something, is I actually started getting very severe headaches from my cell phone. Now, to the point where, have you ever had a cell phone? The older ones used to do it a lot. Have you ever had a radio on and then your cell phone's close to the radio, and just before the cell phone rings, you hear static in the radio? It's and then the cell phone goes off. Yeah. Well, before a cell phone would ring, if I was at a meter, between a meter and a half away, I would get that static in my head. like in my head, and then the phone would ring, and it was that, I was getting such sort of discomfort and pain from it. I couldn't physically put it to my head because I would get a really bad headache. I had to like hold it like this, put it on speakerphone, because if any closer, I would feel static in my brain. And it actually got that severe that I got a couple of brain scans because I've got a brain tumor or something. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Brain scans came back normal, so it was fine. I just became hypersensitive to them for those 4 days. And this was way before I even, I read anything about EMFs. It just wasn't even in my thoughts of EMFs. I didn't even know what an EMF was. If you'd come up to me and said, "Oh, that's electromagnetic frequency," I wouldn't even know what you meant. I just knew that I was getting headaches from my phone, and I could tell when it was going to go off or not. So I was like in some hypersensitive state, and then after that, that's when I started reading up into EMF and finding out about it. And I've told you before, Anthony, like I don't really feel it that much now unless I'm holding it physically. I can feel it in my hand. But if I've like smoked some weed or something, then I can feel Wi-Fi signals. I can feel EMFs. I can feel it from my laptop. But if I'm just walking around a normal state of consciousness, I don't really feel it as much unless I'm physically touching it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, that's a cool story. I've noticed too that like the more, I kind of made that comparison to like an elimination diet. The more that we like reconnect, like camping, sleeping on the ground, not having our electronics on after nighttime, getting in the ocean and things like that. Then when you come back to an environment where there's like Wi-Fi everywhere and, you're spending more time on your cell phone, it's easier to link and attribute some of the things like agitation, irritability, low energy, headaches to the device, where other people may be like thinking it's the last meal they ate,
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to wrap up now, Anthony. So if there's one thing that people can do to reduce the electromagnetic frequency exposure, what would that be?
Yeah, I would have your default be putting your phone in airplane mode, and just make that like the one thing that you do, if there's only one thing, and really be conscious. Make sure that the time you spend on your phone is like intentional and you're aware, you're not spending time just browsing Facebook or Instagram and things like that, because it is having an impact, and that impact is not just like, oh, I could be productively growing my business or spending time with loved ones or working out or whatever. It's always, every choice that we're making is always having an influence on our physiology, and whether it's the thoughts we're thinking, the beliefs we have, like you mentioned, or the actions that we're taking.
Thanks so much, Anthony. And where can people pick up your book? Are you still doing that awesome deal?
Yeah, we're giving away the book for free. There's, I don't know how many copies left, but biohackersguide.com, and we'll ship it anywhere in the US. And then, that's probably the best place to start out if people aren't familiar. And yeah, buddy.
So biohackersguide.com, and then you also have a store. You've got a website and you've got a store. You mentioned a webinar quite a lot today. Is there somewhere we can check out your webinar?
Yeah, the webinar's on our Facebook page, the Anthony DiClemente page. I mean, as of right now, it's, I don't know, there's like 58,000 people who've said they like it. I don't know if they're all being truthful, but that's the page where we posted the webinar and pinned it to the top. So you can go there and check it out. There's some pretty good info there, and I think a lot of people will like it. And if they like it, click the share button.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Anthony. Appreciate your time, man. And I'll link to all these in the show notes. So thanks again, buddy.
Awesome, brother. Good hanging out.